life. It's basically that thing that tells you in the back of your mind, don't go in that direction. Don't do that drug. Don't hang out with that person you just met. You might want to take your time with this relationship. Are you sure you want to go into school? Are you sure you want to do what your mom says? Just because mom sometimes knows best, or parents sometimes know best. That's what that speaks to. And so your honesty check mode is my way of taking a step back, like I said a second ago, and using that mind, that thought, that speech, that thing that never shuts off in the back of my mind, and applying it to something more deliberate. Really being able to focus it down on what I wanted to get an answer for. Because when nobody gonna give me answers. My mom couldn't give me answers, my dad couldn't give me answers, that man was barely around. And none of my friends was giving me answers. They was giving me just the experiences. Next slide, please. So how much do you know about yourself? Because within you is the enriched history that we grew up not knowing. And that's the weirdest thing to me, that we can have all of these things, these are keys to practice, and yet we have no knowledge or recollection of most of them. And then we look at our parents and we see how that continues generationally. And we wonder why we inherit nothing. Because we only know so much, and it leads to nothing. So these are keys to practice when it comes to those things. Awareness, of course, it creates self-worth, self-love, clarity to control your reactions and emotions. So, talking about this a little bit. I grew up, because of the dad thing, right? I grew up really second-guessing a lot of my decisions. I wasn't good at sports. That automatically turned me off to a lot of things. I tried to break dance too at some points. That didn't work out so hot either. Honestly, like at first I started, it was pretty decent. All I needed was encouragement, but I didn't know that's what that was. I just felt like energy was happening. I heard people saying nice things, not something I'm used to. So for me, self-love was something that was like almost foreign, because I was in my household day in and day out just surviving. And then when you're going outside, what are you doing? Same thing, surviving. So awareness is a big, big, big key when it comes to starting a journey to get to know who you are. Honestly, it develops empathetic qualities like dependability, accountability, humility, and every other ability. Being honest does wonders. I'm sure you all know this, and you've had plenty of people in your lives who have tried to get one over on you, tell you one thing and then end up doing another. Promise things and then somehow later turn around and then decide to do something else entirely. All that kept teaching me was that people, you can't control those. You can't do nothing about others. All you could do is worry about the character that you're dealing with, your honesty. But you have to be aware of it. Being aware of what you're going through and what your environment is like lets you be honest about the things that you got. That's what builds your empathy. Don't be afraid of what you're going through. That dependability and accountability, those will coincide. When people see that you're honest with your, not just your wins, but your losses too, that puts you in a different ballgame in the eyes of others. So I dealt in my experience, resilience. It's a word I learned in the Army. I did not know what that meant until I joined that army. The ability to endure sharpens your spirit when sacrifices have to be made. I'll read that again. The ability to endure sharpens your spirit when sacrifices have to be made. What sacrifices? That depends on what your life is going through. That depends on what your journey is asking for. That depends on what your goal and what you're hungry for. What do you have to be resilient through to get to where you want to ultimately go through, or go to? And then your routine-based practice. But right, you have to be aware that you deserve love. You have to be honest that you make bad decisions sometimes. We're human, perfectly imperfect. You have to be resilient through that honesty. A lot of times we don't like hearing it, but it helps us. It builds us. It actually thickens the skin because life is really messed up. And I don't know about y'all, but I didn't get a manual to this. Routine-based practices comes afterwards. Your focus builds the routine you practice. What you make your focus and what you have in your mind producing day in and day out is what you make the majority of your time up of. I had a good friend of mine just recently say, yo, when I get mixed into my element, like I'm lost in my stuff. This is what I do completely. And he's able to produce magic, things that other people have to question and feel insecure about. He knows what I'm talking about. And so your routine-based practice focuses on what you have to be physically aware of when you're manifesting things mentally and spiritually. When those two are in conjunction, physically it comes into being. You have to be aware and honest with yourself of what that is, whether if it's good or bad, toxic or positive. You get told a lot. You're the sum total of 5 people that you hang out with. But what if those 5 people are excellent? What if you continue to find issue after issue after issue everywhere you try to go? It might be you. Did you stop to think about that? You might be taken away from other people from all you know. Your approach to things and the way that you handled life might have worked then, but might not be working for this next level you have to go through. And so to be able to give yourself a moment to step back and be able to actually break these things down, puts you in a position to really win with yourself and the people that you ultimately get to grow with, even further than what you're already doing. Next slide, please. Mental health matters. So, point to this. What's all this about? To gain experience and understanding, to ask the right questions. I've heard, if you don't ask, closed mouths don't get fed, right? Asking the right questions is also a means to that. When you're asking the wrong questions, but you're looking for a different result, or when you're living your life a certain way, expecting a different result, we all know what that is, right? Insanity. And so why I behaved how I did when I was younger, I really wanted to know and understand why I would hold my tongue a lot, and I wasn't able to be more defensive of myself, show a little more value within me. Why and how I attracted things into my life. I don't understand why I was such a good dude. I'm talking about the flowers, take you out to dinner, open the car up and pick you up early, half hour on time. Like, I was the guy. I took your kid. I took him out and said this was mine. Like, I'm the dude with the energy. And regardless, no matter how much I put in, certain people, you just can't do nothing about. But I wondered, before I understood that, why and how I was attracted to that. I had to dig within myself, understanding my reactions to my environment. Instead of being this healthy about it, I was getting offended, I was shutting the hell down, I was cussing people out, I was putting the blame on other things that were obvious, and I had justification, but at the same time it wasn't getting me nowhere still. All I was doing was just running people's ears up and getting people sick of being around me. So I'm dealing with things justifiably, but then I'm also losing my real people because I don't know how to fix me. How many of y'all deal with that? Have dealt with that? Have had that experience? To be a better partner. Bro, that's what this whole life is about so far. I have not done one thing in this life without having to go through somebody else first. Why do I always keep thinking, why did I always keep thinking somehow it was going to change if I kept on trying to do something that other people who didn't know themselves enough would attempt to tell me they needed? They wouldn't even do it in a good way. You can't be something for somebody who isn't that for themselves. You've heard this in very many different forms. To learn your gifts, you're born. That's not accidental. I can't do academics like some of my friends, man. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all, yo. Like, my grades was not the best. D's, F's. I even had U's at one point. Like, I really understood what that was. I was like, yo, unsatisfactory, like, for what? What did I do? And I had to understand that what I was good at wasn't even in my school system. I didn't learn that until I actually lost a lot more in my life later on. But I had to also continue, like you said earlier, be aware of my environment so that I could value what was in front of me instead of letting it just defeat me, and understand my reactions in my environment and then build better relationships. the healthier I was able to be with myself and love myself, no matter what was going on, the better the people around me wanted to be around me. And we're getting as a result as well. Granted, you got those few that you end up losing because they want to try to question you, or they just don't want to change or embrace things. And that's okay, that's life, that's what happens. This is what we do this for. Mental health matters, y'all. Overall, that's what all of this covers. Mental health. And it's so prominent in our communities that we don't seek out proper help, especially when we have the time to or when it's necessary at that moment. We wait till it's literally like the very end, damn near like the last moment. I would be lying to y'all if I told you I didn't almost finish this thing at the last second. Like, bad habits hit us at every turn, yo. And we end up paying the price for it later. Better to understand why. Sadly, the story of African American mental illness cannot be told without recognizing every present socio-political agenda. And their particularly premonitions, I worked on that word a little bit, effects on black children. Extreme, concentrated poverty, what we all go through, what we all build the hunger out of, what we all decide to chase a dream instead of sitting in, for example, continues to impact the availability of mental health treatment. So that tells me we focus so much more on the problems that we have than ourselves. I mean, you can't blame us. Being afraid to lose your home and all your things that you work so damn hard for, like, who's not gonna feel a way about this? Especially with the history that we got, like, be real. And that's your reference point at the bottom for that queen right there who so graciously wrote this for me to be able to present today. Dr. Lulu. Next slide, please. Mental health, y'all, I'm telling you, it's necessary, extremely necessary. So what's your story? Your story matters because you matter. After everything tonight, if you remember anything, remember that I looked at you and saw you. Not because I wanted your money, not because I wanted your attention or your accolades, but because I see a value in you way past what anybody in the past, peace, King,
Peace to you, how you doing?
could ever pick a seat anywhere you like, brother, could ever pretend, especially when it came to any type of experience that you might have been through in the past that tried to prove to you that you ain't who you've had to grow to become, the greatness that you are, and everything in life that tried to tell you different. So your story matters, and every one of you that wakes up every new day is because the Most High has plans for you. I don't know what you subscribe to, and it doesn't matter to me personally, but it matters to you, and it should. Subscribe to something, because it means everything. And you'll know what that means when you do what I'm telling you. Where you've been is the blueprint to someone else looking for where to go. I said in the beginning, I didn't have the parents that I thought I needed or wanted. So I looked to the streets. I looked to anybody that I saw myself in a little bit, that I started to really look after or look up to, excuse me. And I made my lessons out of those types of people, all those idols that I ended up having to figure out. I didn't have nobody, no big brothers, I'm the oldest one in my family, cousins and all. That's a different ballgame, bro. I don't know if you've been through that. And there's gonna be tons of people I meet that have been through that. But that, man, that right there, it puts you in a weird place. Because for some reason you get to be the solution and the butt, or the crash course dummy. So you get all the energy. It's exhausting. But it's humbling because people need you, and that tells you something different. Your story has the power to unlock answers to questions about you. So all those things that you run away from, all those things that you ignore, pretend like you're good about, things that you like sick and tired of hearing, you pretend like you don't have a problem with it, but you secretly kind of do, because you're moving a little different, and you're moving a little funny for it. That's the key. That sauce right there is the uniqueness. You trying to figure out how to be uniquely you and get seen and noticed for who you are? That's the way to do it. You go through every pain that you specifically went through alone, that you had to figure out by yourself, and you don't let that just let you sit and big your head up. You let that grow you into the value that it apparently took, because life said, this is how big the issue needs to be, because this person is that fast. So you don't look at it in those terms. You think, damn, this is huge. Why me? Nah, bro. You gotta realize the bigger the issue, it's because the bigger you're meant to become once you get past it. But you gotta get past it first. Get your awareness up. I grew up with a single mother. You heard me say this earlier, who did her best. Never knew my father, and academically I wasn't the best. So I searched for more meaning to make sense of my gifts. When I was a kid, I used to be told that I used to talk a lot. This is irony, like at its fullest to me. I swear to you, man, I could not go nowhere for 5 minutes. I would talk and jabber people's brains out with nonsense. But that's because I didn't have any guidance. I had no compass. And that's the issue that I found when I got older. Instead of letting me question things like, God, why do I have to notice things that other people don't? That doesn't go nowhere. I noticed what other people didn't like what I just said. Not having nobody, because I didn't have a compass, for some reason God decided to bless me with a compass to guide others with. But I had to be honest about what I've been through first. I can't just pretend to be upfront with y'all and say, you're gonna do great, and then that's it. That's gotta come from a real place, otherwise it's not real. Next slide, please. That's why your story matters. That's why there's value in that. What's your why? Who's on your mind? Who do you do this for? I have a son, guys, a 5-year-old. That boy's my world. I had no idea I would be in love with a human being so much, it gives me goosebumps just to think about it. I didn't know this, and I'm still trying to figure out how to handle that. The biggest fear I got, honestly, is not making him proud of me. Like, as simple as that sounds. I don't want to do this and waste, I guess I would call it wasting my time, and like not have nothing to show him after. Like, I look at him in that way, and he doesn't even know it yet. Wow. So what's the reason why you do what you do? Because if you don't have that, you're gonna give up, bro. You're gonna give up, and you're not gonna give up, I'm sorry. You might continue doing what you're doing, but you're not gonna do it with the same energy that you would if you have stakes. If you have things that are hanging over your neck, a chip on your shoulder. What's in your heart is what you gotta see it, right? What's in your heart is what's gonna make up who you ultimately are, man. Your heart shows. Your passion for what you want shows. If you don't care about what you're doing, just because you're good at it and you can get some money, you're gonna be unhappy the rest of your life. If you're only doing things expecting people to feel good because you went through and did some work, you're not gonna get much out of your life because that's superficial. It goes away. People value you ultimately. Those who know how to. And you gotta learn the same when it comes to the people that you have in your life, or you who's trying to get into someone else, like me trying to get into my sons. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna dog and pony show this kid and impress him. Or maybe that's just me being nervous. Mental. In whose shoes have you been in? Who's an example for you? The people that you look up to, because like we talked about, most of us, like me, we don't have anybody to really look up to and say, this is somebody who's been there, done that, and has done it a way that I could really emulate. You become that for people who you don't see, especially those you don't see are the ones who get affected the most. That's why it's important. I learned this in the Army, to do things even when nobody's looking. That's why doing the right thing when no one is looking is important, because you really don't know who is. And you can come up one day and say something, and out of nowhere, somebody who might have been watching you comes in and actually contradicts and puts you in your place and shows you for who you really are. What I'm really saying is you can't be at home and not wash dishes, not wash clothes, not take care of the wife if that's what you got, not take care of your kids and your responsibilities, and then be out here, I'm great. Y'all see me, y'all feel me, y'all do what I do. It don't work that way. I had to learn that the hard way. Next slide, please. Your why makes up the reason you pass the time that you get bored of things. So self-love and your focus plan behind that. Mind, body, spirit. Everything we talked about today, you can encompass it all here. Mind, body, spirit. What are you consuming in the mind? What are you processing? What are you watching? What's your content like? What are you thinking about? What you make your focus is what you make the priority. We talked about that a second ago. Because if you believe it, then it is. And that's corny. But that's actually true. I can tell you that you're the greatest rapper alive. Or that you're the greatest whatever alive. And if you tell me, nah, not yet, bro, that's true. It's that simple. If you think you're not going to be great at what you're doing and you think you're not going to give it a grand entrance with the energy that it deserves, you buckle up, because that's exactly what you're manifesting. So what you do with your mind and what you do and what you feed it, what you're reading, what you're consuming and what you're doing meditation-wise, ultimately helps you gear up the things that are needed mentally in your space. If you don't have that clear, how do you think you're going to get to where you want to get to from point A to B? How are you even going to be aware that you have a gift? If you're in your mind so much telling yourself the negativities that you go through. The body, are you exercising? What are you eating? We talk a lot about this in the culture, but we don't talk about why it specifically matters so much to do and practice. You can't hope to actually survive your life if you're not physically strong enough to actually carry your burdens. If you're not strong enough to carry what you're asking for. And I'm sorry to tell you, I didn't agree to be in this life either, but we here. There's meaning behind that. And anybody who chooses to find meaning behind it is empowered that much further into your spirit. What do you subscribe to? It doesn't matter who you got, but who do you subscribe to? Who do you give all of the gifts and all of the accolades to when it's all settled and done? Who are you talking to when you're dealing with your problems? Because mental health, we have that and we deal with that a lot. I come from a culture where religion was really big, but it wasn't big for the right reasons. It was big for the image of it. And it took a big toll. A lot of us wound up leaving youth communities. It was like the thing to do. It's almost like a rite of passage. You go to high school, you see some of your friends in church, and then you have the youth groups. But then over time you see people leaving and changing, and somehow they come back when they get older. It's like, yo, this is whack. But ultimately it doesn't take the effect that it should. Spiritually, what are you doing? Who do you credit your life to? Because if you're doing things and you're great at them and there's no meaning, like we said a second ago, you're only gonna find that temporary, superficial meaning. And you're gonna feel sad, you're gonna feel without and less than no matter what you're doing. Why there isn't a class and a course for this, it still boggles me. But I can tell you what I do think. I think that because we know that there's been setups upon setups over our lifetimes, it may not be accidental that we don't have a 101 about how to deal with yourself, how to figure out who you are, so that when you're in a relationship with somebody, you kind of give them a better idea than what you carry about what you're dealing with. And vice versa. I would have loved to know that the person that I was in a relationship with, I'm not even gonna be that messed up, didn't deal with the tragedy that she dealt with weeks before meeting. I wish that there was more accountability behind that person to really take responsibility and heal themselves if they really wanted to be worthwhile to somebody. That's where I really feel like the defeat happens. It's not so much in the breakup and the drama that you go through. It's in the consistent cycle that we all know about and somehow still happens anyway. We gotta get a handle of that by getting a handle of ourselves. Mind, body, spirit, when you're focusing on these in conjunction to one another. What you're reading, meditation-wise, and quieting your mind. You're learning in practice how to take control of you. And I said in the beginning, mind and spirit, when they come together, they create the physical manifestations. Next slide, please. Did you guys get most of that? Do you want to read that? You guys good? Yes. Nothing in this world has any meaning except the meaning you give it. Nothing in this world has any meaning except the meaning you give it. So, I'll end with this, y'all. Listen, you're a creator, and you're not just a creator. Think of yourself like, we'll use the stars for a second. You're a star in this lifetime, and like the sun, the bigger that you become in this universe, the more you start to gravitationally pull in. The more successful you become in your life, the more you start to guide through it, the more experience you gain in it, the longer you survive, because I have cousins who aren't even here no more, who deserve to be more than me. So you add those gems and you add those seasonings in there, those specifics, adding more enrichments to your life, and you start to really unfold and understand that even though you're able to do great as a star and pull other people in and be amazing in that way, you're pulling in the negativity as well. You're pulling in the negativity as well. Success comes with both sides, not just the one. You see one because it's brighter than the other, but the other one creeps up on you when you least expect it. You are the universe in your lifetime, and you're manifesting everything that's around you. When you get a handle of that for yourself and you understand, as big as you're getting, with your gravitation, you're pulling in and it's trying to consume you and compress you that much more. That's why it's hard. That's why you're not where you're at or where you want to be at. That's why you're still figuring out things that are like, when you really get the aha moment, I get mad sometimes. It's like, I should have known that. But really, just another thing that I got to work on with myself. Maybe I show myself a little bit more love. Might be a little bit better. So you practice your self-love. Once you find it, self-awareness, and you add that to your self-worth, you can hope to find your gift. So you know what to do with it. And then when you become successful in what you do, you won't emotionally break down. And you'll be able to take care of your family legacy the way you deserve. And the last slide. I appreciate you guys here. Thank you guys so much. Salute, King. Thank you for coming. This has been Elvis, Malcolm King. I appreciate you guys so much. Listen, you're gonna go through way more than this. Especially now that we're getting successful and we're starting to put together stuff. This is just gonna get harder. But we're here together. I appreciate y'all having just the love to want to actually support me this way. I'm gonna give it back tenfold, so get ready. There's a lot more to come. Thank you. Here's eternity for you guys.
Give it up, Elvis.